Welcome to the Real Talk with Andile Sinqoto.
Maybe I can come in quickly,
Okay.
just to talk about the principle of legislation.
Sure.
You know, when people are trying to make people afraid of legislation, they'll say, no, legislation will make the government decide, who gets to do what and all of those things. Whereas legislation is more of, this is what the industry is going through. And this is how the industry needs to protect the vulnerable, meaning the workers.
Yeah.
They are the ones who are providing the labor, and they're the ones that are exploited. It's the same thing as what we witnessed a few years ago when there was this, the labor brokers were actually banned, because in the labor broker system, a company can say, I want to employ 5 cleaners. Now, there's going to be a company that will provide these cleaners. Now, if this company, this labor brokering company provides these cleaners, your company, if they want to replace any of these cleaners, they can easily say, we don't want her anymore, she must leave. There's no protection in terms of what are the processes that you need to follow if you want to change any of the employees. Again, on the question of the minimum wage, the working hours, you find that the labor brokering system made the workers to be vulnerable. So it is the same thing as we're witnessing in the industry as well, in the sense that there should be basic conditions of employment. That speaks to the leave days, that speaks to the working hours, that speaks to the provision of transport for crew members who are going to be working at night. So anything that is affecting predominantly the workers, because if you read the basic conditions of employment that most workers are subjected to, you find that it is protecting the worker from the company, because the company's got resources to an extent whereby it is you as a worker, especially in our country with a very high unemployment rate. You find that a person will want, the worker knows that you are desperate for a job, and you are even willing to do anything for you to get that particular job. So in my view, legislation is paramount. And also linking to the first panel, which was talking about transformation. Transformation will not happen just out of the blue. You need to legislate transformation. If you read our history as a country, there was this ideology, apartheid racist ideology. It was not something that was just spoken.
Yeah.
There was an ideology which was backed up by law, because they wanted to achieve a country whereby black people live there, white people live there. There had to be a law for that. Meaning, even when it comes to transformation, there needs to be laws that actually force people, force companies, force producers to act in a certain way. And if they don't act in a certain way, there is a government or there's an institution in which the workers or the artists or the creatives can say, I'm going to report this company for unfair practices. And on the last issue I want to talk about, the problem we have in our country is that South Africa is not on the digital economy part of things. It is not wanting to catch up with the rest of the world, or it allows company to undermine South Africa as a country and South Africans. Let's talk about the e-hailing industry. When you go to the UK, a driver is regarded as an employee. They've got UIF. If they got involved in an accident, Uber is going to assist in terms of repairing the car and the medical bills. But come to South Africa, a driver is regarded as a social partner. If you get to an accident as a driver, it's on you. Whereas you are making money for Uber.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing in my view, whereby if there is no regulation, Netflix and all of these other big companies are going to exploit people, and they are not going to be doing the same thing they're doing in other countries.
Exactly.
So that is why regulation is important. Regulation as to how does the creatives or the crew members relate with the producer or the company, and at the same time, how does these companies, your international companies that are coming to South Africa, actually operate when they're in South Africa? Not to have a case whereby a production company from America comes here, 100% employees are not South African. The only thing that they are going to be using in our country is just the where they are shooting. Otherwise, the crew, they can come 100% with the crew from outside of the country. That is because if there's no legislation to address that, it is something that could happen. So legislation will help a lot of things, especially when it comes to the relations between the workers and the production companies.
Well said, sir. Well said. Like a politician. I was talking to a friend of mine from the States. We're talking about this because we have a camp boot camp, a director's boot camp. So he's going to be part of that boot camp as one of the teachers. And he was saying that in the US, if you are from another country in the US and you go and direct a job in the US as a director from South Africa to US, you have to motivate it. Why? The company that hires me, the director from South Africa, they have to motivate to the unions that why are you bringing this director, but we have directors in the US. And now I have to as well motivate. But in South Africa, you can come with the director anyway. No one is going to ask him anything, So, so, Butwa.
I have a question for...
Yes.
So, what potential lies in, for example, the European Union as a bloc has a couple of rules across the bloc, and they've made trading there. So with us, Africa Free Continental Trade Area is growing. What potential lies in that for us and politically, how could one get there to almost do that within the region?
Yeah. The benefits of the free trade area agreement is that it is something that is widely accepted by almost all countries in the continent. So you won't have a case whereby there are some countries that are refusing to be part of the trade agreement. Now, I think the potential that is there is for your product, your skills to be able to have access across the entire continent, because what it effectively means is that you're not confined to a country, and the rules that are there, just like it happens in the European Union. In the European Union, you find that countries get together, agree on a set of rules that will benefit the citizens of these different countries. Therefore, there won't be that animosity whereby one worker from Poland can go to the UK, but one from UK can't go, because what limits, what closes opportunities for many African countries, it is that unfair treatment whereby a worker from South Africa is refused access to work in some projects in another African country, but the same rules are not applied to South Africa. So it creates a bit of friction. So I think the potential is there, because we know when it comes to, firstly, the population of the continent, the rich, the mineral wealth of the continent. So the continent is rich. The only issue is that it is not, making use of the 1.2 billion people market population, whereby our products and services, not only will they be confined to your country of birth, but they can go as far as Egypt. So the potential is there, and the potential, even with the free trade agreement, it is a step in the right direction, because it creates an equal playing field amongst all the countries that are part of that agreement. So the potential is huge.
Lastly, and then because if we did what like Busi was talking about now, Nigeria came on board, Kenya came on board, then all the streamers, the Disneys, the what, would be forced to play on the same rules. Because they can't go to Zimbabwe and then now in Zimbabwe are they exploiting? And because Botswana's quiet, or Zambia, or... is that a dream, or is it politically even practical that you could have policy in a region?
Yeah, definitely. Because, some of these international companies, when they come to a particular country and, you find that country stands their ground, they'll say, okay, no, it's fine, we'll just go next door. They go next door, they exploit, they do all of these things. But I think now with the conversations that we could be having, especially when it comes to, if we could link the sector with Wamkele Mene, which is person leading the free trade agreement, to see how we could, the sector as well, can get to benefit from, so that it's not a free trade agreement that is more about the products, physical products, but also the creative industry can get to benefit from the legislation, because the free trade agreement is more like a legislation. That is why many parliaments are wanting it to be ratified, so that even though it's there at a continental level, but it needs to be law at a local level as well.
Yeah.
So that is what we're arguing. Where I'm not sure which forum we're in, but we're saying that for the free trade agreement to actually work, it must not be a political tool that remains just something that is nice on paper. Parliaments must rectify it so that it becomes law in their respective countries, so that we can be able to hold the governments accountable to say, here's a law that has been ratified by Parliament.
Sure.
How far is it from being implemented? How far is a government how far is the government from removing the barriers that are actually constraining the implementation of the provisions of the free trade agreement? So it is possible. It just needs political will from a regional block level, continental level, but the potential is a lot.
Yeah, I think you just answered like the question that I said it was specifically for you. You asked the same question that I said it was going to be specifically for him.
If I can say just one thing, I know you need to rush.
I'm gonna after you say this.
You know, the industry needs to lead the regulation of the industry.
Sure.
There's never been a time in our country whereby the government sits and says, okay, here's an industry, people are being exploited, we are going to intervene and make sure that people are no longer exploited. Look at it's the Domestic Workers Union that led the minimum wage for the domestic workers. It is the mine workers that fought in Marikana. So it's always the case that if the people that are there, they are the ones who need to drive and lead the process of correcting whatever is wrong in their industry. So in our view, if you could even write, like the bill as to how does regulation look like, because you find that maybe you can speak about, yes, there needs to be regulation, but there could be the following conversation should be, all right, fine.
Draft.
What does it look like? So that you create a picture to say, we need to be regarded as workers. We need to have this basic minimum wage, stuff like that, so that when you are selling the idea, the other creatives in the sector can say, this is the direction we are taking, and it is addressing the problems that we are having. Otherwise, the conversation needs to move on to the second level now. And even if parties have to assist in Parliament in terms of tabling the bill, they need, in our view as an organization, we do not want a situation whereby we come and impose our ideas. We rather have a case whereby you come to us and say, this is who we are, this is the research we've done, this is the practical realities of our industry. We need you to be our mouthpiece in terms of changing the law to reflect what we want as an industry. It's much easier when you tell politicians, instead of wanting politicians to guide you or wanting politicians to solve your problems, because to a certain extent, if a person is not part of an industry, they will not know the intricacies of the industry. So I would also urge the industry to be more radical. You are too polite, especially because you are creatives. Look at what happened in Marikana. In Marikana, they said we are not going to work. And after them not going to work, the government had to intervene. So it's always a reality in our country that you need to make the loudest noise. You need to be radical for the government to say anything. But in the polite nature that you are in now, it's like
it's not working.
It's not working.
So just your last few words, like your last words on the entire issue, from transformation to legislation, whatever that you feel like you.
Yeah, I think transformation is not going to come by the goodwill of the ones that are in power. Transformation can only happen if it's enforced, and you enforce transformation by having laws. If you recall, I think in the early 2000s or in the 90s, the workplace was predominantly white. Up until there was laws that state that for a company to have a higher BE score, they need to employ Africans and they need to employ black women. It's only then that we started seeing the workplace changing. It was changing because they were responding to a bill, or they were responding to a law. So even in this case, we need to make sure that everything is backed up by piece of legislation. And like we've stated, there is no process in our country whereby government actively especially if it's in the best interest of the people. If you look at the bills now that are currently in Parliament, there's one bill that is speaking to the electricity regulation. It is because of they want to divide ESCOM into 3 separate units. So the reason why they're spearheading that, because it is something that is affecting them as government.
Sure.
Similarly with the laws, the bill on the NGOs, but something that is affecting the citizens, you find that there's no political will. So hence the industry, my suggestion, the industry must spearhead the question of drafting the legislation. And the last thing to everyone is that we need to make sure that we are responsible when it comes to leaving the industry and our country in a better state, so that our children and grandchildren, future generations get to inherit a better industry and a better country. So whatever that we do, I think, what needs to be central in our thinking as to how do we make our contribution to make the people that are coming after us in the industry and in the country to have a better living conditions than what we're currently experiencing.
Love it. Speak like a politician now.
No.
Close up a politician.